at that meeting. So ideally, well, sorry, at bare minimum the day before, but the week before would be ideal. In terms of co-signers, we said, the bare minimum is one person to make the motion, probably in the board member's best interest to have another person to be sure that there's a second, but that we wouldn't formalize that as a requirement for bringing forward a resolution. In terms of checks or approvals, notifying, requesting the time on the agenda ahead of time. In terms of initial review, we talked about board members, so including the written resolution in the board packet, and that board members are responsible for reviewing the board packet and the resolution ahead of time, but that we need to make sure that we're requesting enough time on the agenda for discussion. Let's see what else here. We didn't get to all of our sections. Most of the things that we talked about are kind of leading up to the board meeting. Let's see, what am I missing here, group?
Yeah, Sarah, I think we got towards like we started at section 3 as well, and we kind of started to dig into just to some of like the more boring procedural stuff, and then we got just to the beginning part of like how a position should be presented and like what research and debate needs to happen. So we're kind of right in the heat of that section, which is the most interesting part of what we were working on. So yeah, I think that sums up what we did, Sarah.
Awesome, thank you guys. And I do see, Katie, your suggestion and Brighton's second of that suggestion of kind of a board retreat to kind of dig into some of these bigger topics. I really like that idea too. It seems that there's a lot of interest from a lot of folks on like diving into some of this stuff, and I think this dovetails a lot with a lot of other workings of the organization. I think, David, your point of like, ensuring that David asks, you're like reporting out on like making sure we have enough time. Oh, getting some report outs from the executive committee, right? I think this is bringing up some other stuff too that I would love to like be like, yeah, that's great. Like, yeah, like let's kind of set some of these other kind of procedures and policies and get some of this, what we've been kind of like morphing informally, right, into some kind of more structured things. So I would love suggestions on how and we maybe can talk about this maybe even via email or something too, about kind of a board retreat or diving into this directly or other topics too that people want to take on. So yeah, I would say maybe let's have more conversation about that going forward. Since we are running just a touch behind, any other comments that folks want to make in regards to this discussion? I guess I apologize. I knew it was going to be tight and we were going to have to kind of rush through stuff. But I very much appreciate everybody's willingness to engage on this. And I think the feedback that I heard back was really great. So thank you.
Before we move on,
okay.
Katie, can I just ask for clarification of your note? Are you looking for a separate strategic planning retreat, or as part of it, strategic planning also needs a retreat? Okay.
Okay, thank you. With that said, the next item on the agenda, committee updates. We'll click through this really quickly too, we have about 15 minutes on the agenda right now for this. Strategic planning is on the top of this list. Katie, would you be able to give an update or assign someone else to give?
Please check out the survey summary document that's in the board packet. Kenzie and I and the committee worked to translate the really robust responses we got from the survey we did all last summer and into the fall into takeaways and did a bunch of like coding so that we could summarize what folks' responses were. Just to say, yet again, the survey is not the only community engagement we're going to do towards the important questions we need to grapple with about the future of the organization, but it's one piece that kicks us off and I think is sort of helpful for like sparking ideas. We tried to include a lot of quotes directly from neighbors' responses, that from a wide array of those responses. If you have questions, comments, things that you think could be more clarified from it, please send them to me or to Kenzie. And the purpose of summarizing this in this way is for us to have this information to then do the grappling with like big, pretty existential questions we need to do. We will also use this in the public community engagement we're going to do later this spring as we put a revised mission in front of the neighborhood. So just to remind everybody of the timeline that I shared at the last meeting, this month we're finishing this survey and working on drafting an updated mission. Josh did some really helpful work aggregating missions of organizations that are most similar to us and most different than us and all of our neighboring organizations. That's what we'll bring to the board at the next meeting. And then we'll be doing public engagement with some of that in the spring. And then we're going to approve that new mission in time for the annual meeting. But the most important thing I want to raise is obviously some of the long-term questions that we need to engage with as a board, we cannot just decide as our committee. It's our role to bring those forward. And at the next meeting, we've been working on drafting those together from the survey and from the other engagement we've had. And yeah, having a retreat was a pretty strong proposal from the committee because some of them just like need a lot more discussion than we ever have time for in these meetings. Are we going to merge with other neighborhood organizations? What are we actually going to most prioritize given the budget constraints? It's not on our committee to make those decisions alone. I want the whole board to like feel that and know that. We do see it as our role to facilitate the process that we all move through them. And we need to have more space than these meetings to do that. That's everything.
Can I just
Awesome.
ask a quick question? Oh, sorry, Chris. Can I ask a quick question?
Go, Sarah.
So it sounds like, well, just in thinking to March, will you all need additional time on that agenda to put the various missions and visions in front of the board and discuss that? Okay.
Yep, and I have that to talk about. We had our
Got it.
last strategic planning on Friday. So executive committee hasn't met since we had our strategic planning, but it's on the agenda for the executive committee to talk
Cool.
about strategic planning and what we need for March.
Awesome. Thank you, Katie, and thank you for the question, Sarah. Next on the list is fundraising.
I can speak to that. Fundraising hasn't met. We are doing some background work. I'm really concerned about collateral in order to support our fundraising efforts. So I have a piece out to a local neighborhood member, and she is a branding expert. I've been talking to her about kind of what that packet should look like as we begin to kind of look at our neighborhood and our block captains. I'm looking to them to be our fundraising contact points. So working on that piece, we will meet next week as soon as Becky's back from vacation and reconvene, probably work towards some kind of a block captain strategy and then special events also moving forward. At least those are two low-hanging fruit pieces. That's all I have at the moment.
Awesome. Thank you, Todd. Next on the list, recruitment.
We also have not met, but we will be meeting. We just have to set a date. But I think we'll probably meet in the next couple of weeks. We've been emailing about the KFNA board roles and responsibilities packet that we give to prospective directors, rather, that gives information about the board and why people should serve and what the commitment looks like. So we've been working on that and updating it. And then also we took a look at the application, but we had just done that last year. So I don't really think that we need too many adjustments to it. But if you are a newer board member and there was something about the application that is fresh in your mind that you didn't necessarily understand the significance of it, or really what the ask was, or you just, I don't know, any thoughts that you have on the application, it would be really, really helpful to hear from you. Or if you think it's good and fair and it does a good job of kind of giving us board members more information about people, and community members more information about people, so that we can, you know, vet candidates fully, then great. I think we'd also like to know that too. And I think that is just about it. Obviously, the annual meeting is coming up. So I suspect that we'll be giving longer updates, probably beginning as early as next month. So there you go.
Awesome. Thanks, David. And then I see the last one on here was redevelopment. Sarah LR, is there anything that you wanted to talk to here, or was there something that specific in terms of redevelopment?
No, I think that was no, I don't think so.
Okay.
You guys meet next week.
Yeah.
So maybe
So
a
again,
heads
just
up if people want to attend, it's next Wednesday.
Yep. Okay, great. Next item on the agenda, looking at events and discussion on ways to energize board and block contacts around our events. We're kind of getting to the point of the year. I know we've had a couple of these discussions and brought up this spreadsheet a couple of times, but we're getting to the point where the rubber hits the road. Is that the phrase? Where we need to start making some decisions, right? And we need to start saying, you know, we've talked a little bit about, you know, budget here. We've talked about staff time, right, and staff resources, and we've talked about balancing those things against what is a need to continually have KFNA be relevant and connected with our community. And events is a big way that we do that. And so what we're really hoping, you know, and maybe Sarah, I'll kick this over to you next, but is that we can get all board members here looking at this event list and committing to events so that we can make these happen. If we don't have that and don't have either kind of a community lead or a commitment from the board, these events either can't or won't happen, or will be scaled back significantly. And so that's kind of the discussion that we're hoping to have tonight, is to dig into these and for everybody to look at it and go, yep, I'm ready to kind of to take this on, or to participate in a group to help take it on. That I think is a better approach. We did this actually almost 2 years ago, if other folks remember. We sat down, looked at the thing. That's where this sheet comes out of, and looked at kind of leads and different folks assigned to this. And then COVID hit, and a lot of this stuff didn't happen. I remember I see Elena's name's on the Porch Fest one, and I think that was right, but that was this year, right before COVID hit, because I know I was on that committee too, and we never really got to do much. With that said, Sarah LR, is there anything that you would like to add in terms of events?
Yeah, I do. So the first link that I put in the chat, the one that has a Kingfield logo on it, is actually for a KFNA event coming up this Sunday. Thank you to many of you who have signed up. It is the annual Kingfield Empty Bowls being done on Super Bowl Sunday. It is a fundraiser both for Nicollet Square and for the Neighborhood Association, so it ticks a lot of boxes. Becky has been the board rep on it and sadly is out of town for the event, but we've had a really strong planning team who has done a ton of work, has done a lot of the outreach, is very committed to the event. A lot of them have been involved for many, many years, so it actually helped to take away some of the why are we doing this, and moved more towards like, okay, we want to do this event. How do we do it differently because of COVID? So the later shifts, the event is only 11 to 2. The later shift, which I think must be noon to 1 or whatever, 12:30 to 2, does need support from volunteers, and it would be great to have board members there. The second link that's in there, I think BJ put it up, and then I followed up probably with the same link, is the event list. So typically this gets reviewed and approved by the board in January. The typical pattern for the Kingfield board has, Todd, you can follow the link and sign yourselves both up. It's a sign up genius link. Then you guys can pick a shift for stuff. The typical pattern of the board has been to have one major event every single month of the year. If you look at this list, it is reduced from that. I don't think we have the capacity right now to do a major event every single month of the year. But then in true energetic, excited KFNA style, we often add 1 or 2 events on top of those major events each month of the year. And so this is what I'm recommending as a doable plan for engagement. And it comes in part from, we have support from volunteers for a lot of these events. A number of them are big and showy, so they get a lot of attention for the neighborhood association. And if we don't do them, if we just focus on the stuff you guys are talking about, I think it gets even harder to recruit new people into the organization who might come to us through these events and be excited about the work that KFNA is doing. So besides just the board saying like, yeah, let's do Porch Fest, I would like the board to think about, yeah, let's do Porch Fest, and what is KFNA's presence at that event? And that's sort of my caveat, is a lot of these events, when they're done by non-board members, the board's begged and pleaded to come be there and support it, but they don't really have a presence. And so I think we have to look at how you guys not only are involved in the planning, but also what's the element, what's the marketing, what's the angle where KFNA is really highlighted in each of these.
And just to highlight that, Sarah, I think once we get board members into these events, I think that is a good framing for saying, okay, yep, this is the way that we want board members to engage, and to think really specifically about how does this event, continue the work of KFNA and continue the visibility of KFNA and continue the mission of KFNA. So
Right.
I think, my real goal is to hopefully get folks tonight, the 13 or 14 of us that are here. Mary Jo, I'm including you on that if you would like to sign up to participate and help organize an event. But to say, yep, this is something that I'm really interested in. This is something that I want to make happen. I'm willing to work with a group of, board members and community members as well, who we know are interested in these, to make that happen. So any questions or comments, or I guess just kind of opening this up to discussion at this point, or opening this up to folks being like, hey, yep, I'm super excited about this. I want to do it. And then we're going to start writing these down.
Sarah, how come Open Streets is crossed out and the garden tour?
Open Streets is crossed out because I spoke to them yesterday and they took Nicollet off the list.
And you don't think they're doing Lindale again?
They are doing Lindale.
Okay, and that's usually June, right?
They're
Earlier?
doing Lindale on June 5th. Yeah, it was a super interesting conversation. They just totally took Nicollet straight off.
That's my favorite Open Streets. That's a bummer.
It's also it's the biggest open streets. So they have a new ED who I spoke to at the end of last year. I was actually really shocked. And I said, I can't believe, you picked these other 2 events over us and never even called us to like help. And he did the same thing again this year. The garden tour I took off because I would say if we find leadership to actually lead it, we can do it, but it turns into a huge amount of staff work, finding the people to lead it and sort of pushing it through. So we just can't afford that right now.
Yeah, I just was curious as to what was happening there.
So I was looking for, I think if the board really embraced it, it would be a great way to make connections with people at their yards and their houses on different blocks during the tour, having a presence there. But the way that we've been running it, we don't get a lot from it.
And
If
could
we
we
can't
do,
make money and we're not getting connections.
yeah.
So,
Can we have a table at Lindale Open Streets? I guess that's what we did at Nicollet, right?
yep, we
And
can.
again, to what end? I mean, I guess just for visibility.
To what, I guess the question would be to what end? Yeah, we can
Yeah,
have a
right.
table. We could hold an event, we could do a thing. I also just applied for a grant from the city that we'll find out about in a month to do actually, it's a Nicollet Avenue Business Awareness grant. And if we get it, we'll be doing a series of pop-off events with local businesses along Nicollet. So we might be able to use those as sort of community activation points along Nicollet Avenue. Those would be happening throughout the summer.
Okay.
Okay.
Anyone feeling strongly about any of these, or any of even the ideas that are on top, or the kind of there's past year ideas too, that if anyone wants to adopt one of those, they're all open.
Sarah, can you talk about National Night Out? What do you mean by outreach needs to be rethought?
So on National Night Out, the concept is the board goes to all the parties. And I think that struggling with COVID last year, when board members visited parties, because we weren't stuck there scooping ice cream, there was less engagement with the blocks, and it was more sort of a, hey, we're here, don't want to interrupt your party, and moving on. And so if
Okay.
we're going to take the time and effort to go to people's parties, I think it's only worth doing if we're really going to invest in being there and talking to neighbors. We don't need to give them a present. They don't need anything from us. The point of it is to like get a foot in the door and meet people we don't meet otherwise.
We'll take that up at maybe our fundraising conversation. It seems like a great opportunity for us to touch the residents and educate them about our value proposition, our mission, vision, and then ask for donation. And so let's discuss that at fundraising.
Well, kind of related to that, I'm just looking at some of these ideas and I think I find myself being like, yeah, cool, I'll sign up to help with an event. I would be interested in organizing some of these things, particularly something related to art or biking or even just like this restaurant crawl idea. My concern is I don't feel like any of the things that I would organize would necessarily be fundraising. They would be more community events. So when you're asking this, like, are you specifically asking for stuff that's going to raise funds, or are you just thinking of just things that we can host in the neighborhood?
Are you asking me that question?
I guess, yeah, I'm asking you or Chris, like would you want me to put together an idea for, say, like a bike scavenger hunt, knowing that it's not going to raise any money, but it would create outreach and it'd be something for people in the neighborhood to connect through?
So actually, that's a great idea. So to me, there's two reasons to do events. One is to meet new neighbors in the neighborhood and have them know more about KFNA, and another is to make money that will support KFNA. I think there is a way to do exactly what you're talking about, and we have talked about it in the past, and that's the concept of great gatherings. where each board member or other people in the neighborhood would host small events and charge a fee, basically. So you are building community as a board member, taking people on a bike scavenger hunt that you've organized and planned for, and there's only 20 seats, and they're all, $30 a piece, and the money goes to the organization.
Yeah, see, I'd be very interested in that, but like I work in the arts nonprofit space, so as soon as you say $30 a piece, I'm like, well, I'm not. That's where I'm kind of like faltering, is that I'm really interested in giving people things or working with low income people or working with families or stuff like that. I am not the fundraising person, so that's why I'm a little less like, yeah, I'd love to do something, but it's not going to make money. So I'm not sure, like, if you want to hear about those ideas, if that's a good use of time. I don't know.
I think that there's different ways in doing that event, and so yes, they appeal to different people. If there's that event that's being figured out for how to introduce families to the neighborhood, then that's a very different event, which I think the board may be interested in supporting. The board has multiple goals. I think the hard thing is sometimes when those events get started by a board member, people love them and then they get passed to staff and then they end up costing the organization money, and we're not necessarily building the connections and we're spending money.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'll do some thinking on like what I think I could put together that would at least pay for itself. Is that reasonable?
Yeah, and I want to chime in here because I think this is important, because I think we're talking a lot about fundraising and all of this, but we can't lose sight of the fact that like value comes in many forms, right? Value to this organization is not just an event making money. If people love an event and are engaged, and it's not just about KFNA, I want to be explicit about this. It's about the neighborhood, right? It's about the community. And so if we can hold an event that is cost neutral, that is super valuable to the community, raises KFNA's awareness, gets people engaged, like that's, I would argue, more valuable than an event that makes $1,000, right? Because the returns out of that are going to be continual. And so, Brighton, if you host an event that doesn't lose money, doesn't make money, but people love, that's incredibly valuable, and I like want to encourage that like more than anything. So yeah, like please bring those ideas and please do that. And then maybe that's something that we can then piggyback on going forward to raise money on if it makes sense to do that. So yeah,
Sure. Yeah, I just want to make sure that like I could propose. I have like several ideas that I've thought of, and we've hosted several like bike races out of our house, which is in Kingfield, and it's just like could have invited more people. Not sure how that works and all of that kind of stuff. So I will try to like formalize some of those ideas and just see, because yeah, arts nonprofit, as long as it can be cost neutral, I do it. But it's just a different perspective.
Any other kind of ideas, commitment from board members, things like that, or things that people want to discuss?
I don't know where this intersects, but I think it was the last board meeting where we got a presentation about possibilities for like trainings related to safety and community safety. And I'm interested in helping host those. I did a lot of that last year, and just like bringing in the survey from Strategic Planning Committee. It will come as no surprise that that is a key interest of neighbors. And so I don't know if we consider that sort of like a different kind of thing. Is that like a program and not an event? But I'll just name that I am down to be a part of that stuff.
Awesome. I wrote that down. You're in.
Sarah, we can actually sign up on that document, right, for things that we may want to be involved with? Okay. And this kind of dovetails with a little bit about what we talked about in the action group was, let's say Brighton wants to bring something to the board, an event. Like if we had a form that a person could fill out, that we would know we would know what to ask, like dates or time of year, number of people you're thinking, what it is, what are your goals financially or community oriented, just something so then when you know exactly what information the board needs, and it just gives it a clearer way to think about events. So that might be a good thing to have.
That's a
at some
good
point.
idea.
Where am I?
I'm gonna commit to helping with the Porch Fest group. I know that that's oftentimes been staff led in the past, and so that event, and I would love other board members participating in that because that's kind of a big one. And then the other one that I've brought up in the past, I don't know if I brought up to the whole board, but with the kind of a lot of questions around Grand Avenue being reconstructed, you know, what's going on? Why are there big dips in this, you know, the side, and you know, what is all of this? Hosting a kind of like a walking tour with some of the engineers, maybe some of the city folks, to kind of maybe just tour some of the features, the BMPs, the water management structures, and maybe answer some folks' questions who have questions about Grand Avenue. So, you know, maybe that could be something for the spring, but I think that's something that I know folks would be interested in, and maybe doing, you know, 38th to 46th walking, and people can ask questions to the folks who helped design it or plan it. So.
Yeah, I'd be happy to help with that one. I think that'd be great. And it'd be a way to engage a lot of people.
Awesome. Thanks, Alice. I'll put your name next to my name.
Yeah.
Chris, if you're updating the spreadsheet itself, that was at the very end of it. I just updated it. It said walking tours. Katie, there was an item on there from last year that I think was a workshop of about fear that was on the list and then crossed out because it was done. But I think, right, is it a program or is it an event? It's kind of both.
Yeah, I put a new line item on there for that. So, yep, and put Katie next to it. Other questions or commitments from folks or things that people are interested in? I can, I saw a note in the chat from BJ that David S. and I will lead the Pancake Breakfast. That's awesome. I hope, BJ, that you didn't talk to Dave before that and just volunteered him. That would be even better.
Unfortunately, there was some side texting planning.
He makes them, I eat them. That's the plan. Yep.
We actually have all the syrup that we saved from last year, so we have a lot of pancakes to make. So just as a note, another thing that I'm looking at doing, since we're in the position of not being able to restart and print our full newsletter, like we had in the past due to the expense of that edition, I'm looking at doing an insert in the new Southwest Journal connector as an alternative. It's a lot more affordable. We can target just the neighborhood. Lindell's actually going to do it, so I thought it might be something that we would want to partner with Lindell on as a South Nicollet news. And it would be in both English and Spanish. And be just super, kind of like the e-news, not big stories, not huge articles, but more like, here's what's going on, here's what's going on, that sort of thing. So I would like to bring that up as an option for advertising this year to make sure that we're trying to reach people who aren't on e-communications. And then also using that tool to point people to our e-communications as well. Hopefully we can start that in March. Kind of the hope, hitting the spring season.
Awesome. Some of the other stuff that I know is on this list, election activities, Orchard Jam Harvest Fest, movie night at MLK are some of this, and an Mlk Ice Cream Social are at the top of this list. Do you want to explain Orchard Jam Harvest Fest, Sarah? I think I'm not sure if I remember this one.
So we're planting another dozen trees in the public orchard at King Park that MLK takes, or that KFNA takes care of. And the idea was at some point to start a fall music fest there and do sort of a harvest event, or making jam and then having bluegrass bands and stuff there. But there was also the idea that got canceled this fall of doing Stage Fest, which was sort of a wrap up of Porch Fest, a music fest in the fall that's more of a ticketed event, bringing those musicians together to hear each other. And then building out on that with food trucks and a beer truck and things like that. We lost our location that we were going to use it for last year, but I might have another one on Nicollet. I was kind of hoping to do this the day before Open Streets, but now we can do it instead of Open Streets. The fundraising committee had a pretty good plan worked up for how to handle it. The site that I'm looking at is actually fenced, so it might make ticketing the event a little bit easier. Those of us who have talked about it. So.
I see, Becky, your comment about being on board for that. Thank you.
The Mlk Ice Cream Social was brought forward by the park director, so it's a partnership project. Peter basically asked if the board wanted to be involved in that. They're also looking for ways to connect. Typically it's in July, so he's looking at changing the date to try to grab more families.
Where is the pancake breakfast?
It will be outdoors at MLK Park in March.
Count me out. All right, that's chilly. And is the movie night? No, you said that. No, the Ice Cream Social. Is the movie night a Kingfield thing or an MLK thing that we do together?
So the movie night is typically a park board thing, and we've never really been asked before. Peter called and asked if we wanted to be involved, and he actually wants to get, what's the name of the movie? The Fungus movie. Do you guys know that one? It's super cool. It's more of an adult movie, less of a kids movie. And so we were talking about if he can actually get the rights to the film of doing like an urban forager walk tied to it and then watching the movie. So he's working on rights.
Is that, oh, you said this, Sarah, but that date, I see it says June 15th. That was gonna move for the ice cream social, right?
Yeah, so typically the festival has been July, and it's often on the same night as the garden tour. So the garden tour is traditionally the second Thursday in July. If the board is interested in partnering on the ice cream social, Peter would be willing to move it 1 week later, 1 week earlier. He's not super tied to it. He's just more interested in doing it with other people.
Okay. I guess I'd be interested in helping that if there was someone else who wanted to participate in that. I think, yeah, I got 2 kids who'd like to go eat ice cream, and I'm always trying to find ways to impress them. So
I was thinking it might be more successful if it was done while school is still happening. That Thursday before school gets out on Friday, like why not go eat ice cream? So
okay, we're getting towards the end of the time discussion. Anything else anyone wanted to talk about? I think this is we have some really good commitments from folks, and I think we have a good list filling in a lot of this stuff. Anything else anyone wants to add or sign up for right now? This is always open to.
The exciting thing is that if everything kind of that we talked about, we have events almost every month. So starting this month with Empty Bowls and moving forward, I do think almost every month has an event from KFNA, which is exciting.
Awesome.
and I would say July has been traditionally filled with the garden tour. So if people really, I haven't looked at the list, but if people really want to rethink how that could be done, it's a great event. People love it. I'm just not convinced that KFNA is getting what it needs out of the event.
Yeah. I'll talk to you about that offline. I got a kind of an idea for that, Sarah. So
Okay.
okay. Anything else from everybody? Anything else from anybody?
So I do want to repeat. We have a grant in, 2 grants in with pretty good potential. I think that are both very event based grants. One is the pop off projects along Nicollet Avenue. That would mean at least 3 events. It's a joint grant with Lindale, so 3 events in Lindale, 3 events in Kingfield. That would really be targeted to highlighting different blocks along Nicollet Avenue, different business partnerships and ideas, and a joint pollinator grant that we just submitted with Tangletown, Kingfield, and Lyndhurst. That would be a massive planting project through all 3 neighborhoods that would take place this fall. So if those both come through, we'll have a super active summer. All outdoors, COVID safe.
Awesome. Okay. Okay. Thanks, everybody. Sarah, I guess I would maybe say if you could work on maybe cleaning up this sheet with maybe what our looks like is our final event list.
Yep.
I took some notes in there with the folks in there, and we can make sure that we've got everyone knows what they're planning and working on, and then as we work through the year, I think in the past we've had folks kind of like provide updates, coming into these events and coming into these actions. So if you did sign up for something, and maybe please meet with the folks if you've got other folks that you're working on it with, and then maybe come to the board with some updates would be awesome, so that everybody knows and can help support it in the ways that they can. So with that said, last item on the agenda, Mary Jo, maybe I'll explain this as kind of our last item on the agenda. We typically do report outs from everybody at the meeting. This can be anything that you're looking forward to in the neighborhood, that you've seen, that you want to share, that you're interested in, all of that. So we go through the board members and would invite, I will give you maybe some time to think if you've got something you'd like to share. But this is kind of how we conclude the meeting, to kind of ensure that everybody has some time to engage and hear from everybody else, especially since we're all in this virtual space. So Josh, you are on the top of my list.
think I have too much to report. I know various election things are coming up, caucuses and conventions and that whole process for a lot of important elections for 2022. So I guess pay attention to that. I don't know, it's the only thing that comes to mind right now.
Awesome, thanks, Josh. BJ, I've got you next.
Yeah, looking forward to skiing more. It hasn't been a great skiing year. It's been too cold and then too warm. So I'm the Goldilocks of skiers when it comes to cross country skiing. So hoping it will cool down a little bit so that it's a bit less sloppy for skiing. It's not in the neighborhood, but I'm going to Creekside Supper Club, just across. Becky, you've been, or you want to go? Gotcha. So I'm going, I think, in next week or the week after. So looking forward to trying a new place nearish to the neighborhood.
Awesome, thanks, BJ. Brighton.
Neighborhood. So I just signed and took a deposit from Jim and Faith Kuhlman, and I'm going to be casting a bronze sundial for the sundial building. So I thought that was kind of exciting to actually do some public art in Kingfield.
Amazing, that's so cool. Thanks, Brighton. Katie.
I just want to lift up all the young people taking big action this week. Amir Locke should be alive. And I've seen a lot of people sharing like our young people shouldn't have to be walking out and protesting. And in a humane way, I entirely agree with that. And also I think it's young people who always show us the way. And I'm feeling really angry alongside high schoolers all over the metro, and also just really inspired by their action this week.
Awesome, thanks, Katie. Todd.
Just that I live on a really busy corner and things seem quiet to me. Neighborhood seems very quiet. I don't know if it's weather or if something has changed with people that are out there causing havoc, but neighborhood seems really peaceful at the moment and I really like it. That's about all I got.
Awesome, thanks, Todd. Becky.
Neighborhood wise, well, I sure like Kaluna a lot. I wish it wasn't so darn expensive, but you know, what can you do? And Katie, I second your thoughts on the high school students. It was really impressive. The numbers of kids who showed up, I thought was super impressive. I was downtown last night, or I think it was just last night. And there was a couple hundred people at the government center, you know, at night. It's I don't know, it's amazing to see that many people out still, and it's really disheartening that we're still out there all the time. And it just things just keep happening. So yeah, not much.
Thanks, Becky. I am next. Mine's more of a personal update. The last month in our house has been COVID month for us. We have passed it between our household members, a week and a half, a week and a half, a week and a half, a week and a half. And so I am the last one. So there's no more humans in our house who can catch COVID. I tested positive on Sunday, and after some bad days, I'm actually feeling better today. So like Sarah T, the first day back for not for us, not the first day, the second day back for us of Minneapolis Public Schools, our daughter tested positive. So we went from 2 weeks off to then another 2 weeks off. So she's finishing her second week off here this week and will be in her first day back in school in essentially a month on Friday. So it's been a it's been a rough run, but very much looking forward to this all being over, hopefully eventually, or at least being able to go outside. So that's my update. Sarah T, you are next.
Yes, I am excited to be emerging from a COVID vortex, hopefully. I've had a couple of weeks of distance learning with my oldest, and then my youngest, we've been quarantining with her for the past 10 days. And so she goes back to daycare tomorrow. Fingers crossed that kids will be where they should be right now. And yeah, I just, it has an impact because when we kind of are in those periods, it makes me feel disconnected. And so I'm excited to just get out and be in the neighborhood more the rest of this week. I'm planning to go and support the Minneapolis Public Schools teachers this weekend. There's going to be a march with the St. Paul teachers demanding better educational conditions for our kids. So I'm excited to be out there with people and just feel more connected, because the isolation, the murder of Amir Locke, it's we shouldn't go through those things in isolation. I think that's really when the community and when being with neighbors and discussing, taking action really makes a big difference.
Thanks, Sarah.
I think my report
David S.,
sounds
yeah.
like the last two. I leave isolation in 2 days. Can't wait. But yeah, to be with, we had a neighbor was going away party a couple days ago that I was unable to attend, unable to go downtown. So yeah, kind of felt a little locked in. But Friday is my last day of isolation. But I am really just thankful for my neighbors and for my community. So can't wait to see them in a couple days.
Thanks, David and Alice.
My sense of our neighbors here too is we're all really looking forward to the weather getting better, people being out more, and things starting to lift with COVID, and the kids being able to have normal lives. And although we're in abnormal times, so but hope will be in the air soon, I think.
Awesome. Thanks, Alice. Mary Jo, would you like to share anything? You're on mute right now. There, you got it.
Okay. I'm a CSA member, and so folks at the farm that I purchase from are already beginning prep work for spring planting and that, and are heavily into the organics movement, which has a history that we are not all very familiar with, the origins and the difficulties, the problems, the regulations and everything. So I'm trying to get more involved and more connected there. I want to echo what both Katie and Becky have said about the latest go round, which pretty much wiped me out. I've been in touch with 2 of our city council members who are pushing for some pretty dramatic changes and things to be done immediately. I'm in touch with them, and I want to be involved in whatever those processes are. We need a clean sweep in very simple terms. We're in some very difficult times, and I don't want this summer to be a repeat or worse of the summer of 2020. I was thinking one other thing, but that's probably it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And thank you for coming and being at the whole meeting. We very much appreciate it. Thank you. Sarah LR, you are our last.
Yeah, thank you. Hey, Mary Jo, nice to see you again.
Good to see you.
I am excited that the city of Minneapolis released the community engagement RFP that actually has dollars attached to it for Kmart. And so it's a 2-year planning process. But I actually believe that the street's going to open at this point. It'll take a few more years, but it's exciting to be looking at both the community engagement process, and then a technical firm will be hired separately who will be starting the drawings for the plan itself. So a lot of that work will take place in the next 2 years. So.
Awesome. Thank you, Sarah. And with it being 9 o'clock, we will close the meeting. Thank you to everybody for a good meeting and a good discussion. A lot to come out of this, and we will hopefully all talk soon. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Chris.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye.